He dumped her for a richer wife. She crashed his wedding, coming with his secret twin daughters. Madeline stood in the entrance, wearing a midnight blue dress that hugged every curve of her body. Not provocative, but powerful, elegant, undeniable. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and in her left hand, she carried a small silver purse. But it wasn't the purse that made the entire congregation gasp. It was her right hand, or rather, the two small hands she was holding. Two identical little girls with honey-brown curls, wide hazel eyes, and matching white sundresses stood on either side of her. They couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Their faces carried the same delicate features, the same determined chin, the same look of innocent confusion as they stared at the sea of shocked strangers. "Mommy, why is everyone looking at us?" one of them whispered. Madeline squeezed her daughter's hand gently. "It's okay, baby. Just stay close." She began walking down the aisle. Click, click, click. Her heels echoed like gunshots in the cathedral's stunned silence. No one moved. No one breathed. 300 people sat frozen, their champagne glasses halfway to their lips, their whispered gossip dying mid-sentence. At the altar, the groom stood paralyzed. Andrew Mercer, 6 feet 2 inches of tailored perfection, square jaw, steel gray eyes, and a reputation as one of the youngest CEOs in the city, looked like he'd just been hit by a freight train. His tanned face went pale. His perfectly styled hair suddenly seemed too perfect, his $1,000 tuxedo too tight. Next to him, his bride, Charlotte Graves, daughter of billionaire shipping magnate Richard Graves, clutched her bouquet so hard the stems cracked. Her crystal white gown, designed by a famous European couturier, suddenly felt heavy. Wrong. Madeline stopped halfway down the aisle. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She didn't cause a scene the way desperate ex-girlfriends do in movies. She simply looked at Andrew, really looked at him, and in a voice steady enough to cut through marble, she said, "You left more behind than you realized." Andrew's mouth opened. Nothing came out. One of the little girls tugged on Madeline's dress. "Mommy, is that him?" The other twin tilted her head, studying Andrew with unsettling focus. "He looks like Abby." A woman in the third row gasped so loudly it echoed. Someone dropped a program. The priest lowered his Bible, eyes wide with dawning horror. "Madeline." Andrew finally croaked. His voice sounded strangled, desperate. What are you?" "These," Madeline interrupted, her voice trembling now, but still clear, "are Abby and June. Your daughters. Both of them." The cathedral erupted. Gasps turned into whispers. Whispers turned into shouts. People stood from their seats. Phones came out. Camera flashes lit up the sanctuary like a lightning storm. Andrew's mother, sitting in the front row in an ice blue Chanel suit, looked like she might faint. His father's face turned the color of raw meat. Charlotte stumbled backward, her veil slipping. "Andrew, what is she talking about?" But Andrew couldn't answer, because he was staring at the twins. Really staring. Abby had his eyes, those same gray eyes that had once looked at Madeline like she was the only woman in the world. June had his nose, his stubborn chin, the tiny dimple in her left cheek that appeared when she smiled nervously. They were him. Undeniably, devastatingly, impossibly him. "I didn't know," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Madeline, I swear I didn't." "You didn't want to know," Madeline corrected softly. But her words landed like stones. Andrew's best man, a corporate lawyer named Derek, stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "This is completely inappropriate. You can't just..." "Can't just what?" Madeline turned to him, her eyes blazing now. "Can't tell a man he has children? Can't interrupt a wedding built on lies? Can't show up when I spent 5 years raising his daughters alone while he played Prince with someone else's money?" Derek shut his mouth. Charlotte's hand trembled as she slowly, deliberately, removed her engagement ring. The 10-carat diamond caught the stained glass light, refracting rainbows across the altar. She placed it in Andrew's palm. "Do what you need to do," she whispered. Her voice was shaking, but there was something like relief in it. "Because I'm not marrying a man who doesn't even know his own children." She turned and walked down the side aisle, her gown trailing behind her like a ghost. Her bridesmaids scrambled after her, their faces pale with shock. The Graves family stood as one unit and followed, her father's expression murderous, her mother covering her mouth in horror. Within seconds, half the cathedral emptied. The other half stayed, phones out, recording every brutal second. Madeline felt her knees weaken. She'd prepared for this moment for weeks, rehearsed what she'd say, how she'd stand, how she'd keep her composure. But now, faced with Andrew's devastated expression and the weight of 300 judgmental stares, she felt like she might collapse. June squeezed her hand. "Mommy, can we go now?" Abby, the braver of the two, stepped forward. She looked up at Andrew with those heartbreaking gray eyes and said, in a small, clear voice, "Are you our daddy?" Andrew dropped to his knees. Right there, in front of everyone, in his custom tuxedo on the cold marble floor, he knelt before his daughter and let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. "Yes," he choked. "Yes, I think I am." Abby studied him seriously. Then she said, "Mommy said you lived far away. But you don't look far away." Andrew's face crumpled. Madeline felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. She'd cried enough for this man. "We need to go," she said quietly. Andrew looked up at her, his face raw with anguish. "Madeline, please. Please don't leave. I didn't know." "You made sure you didn't know," she said. Her voice was soft, but it cut deeper than any scream could have. She turned to leave, guiding her daughters back toward the door. But Andrew's voice stopped her. "I'll fix this." She paused, didn't turn around. "I'll fix everything," he said louder now. Desperate. "Please. Just don't disappear. Not again." Madeline looked over her shoulder one last time. "You have 48 hours to prove you mean that." And then she walked out of the cathedral, her daughter's hands in hers, leaving behind a wedding in ruins, and a man finally forced to face the life he'd abandoned. Behind her, Andrew remained on his knees. His mother was screaming at him. His father was barking orders at security. The priest had given up entirely and left through a side door. But Andrew didn't hear any of it. All he could hear was the echo of tiny footsteps disappearing into the sunlight. "Hi, my wonderful friends. Welcome once again to Mr. William Chronicles, where we turn pain into strength and heartbreak into hope with the power of stories. If this is your first time here, we are glad that you found us. Do me a favor. Give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and join Mr. Williams' family. Let me speak a word of blessing over you today. May you never compromise your worth for someone else's comfort. May your sacrifices never go unseen by those who matter. And may you have the strength to walk into any room, no matter how intimidating, and reclaim what's rightfully yours. Your truth is your greatest weapon, and no one can silence it but you. Before we go any further, let me take you back. Because the woman who just walked into that cathedral and stopped a wedding cold, she wasn't always that strong. And the man on his knees, devastated and broken, he wasn't always that weak. There was a time when Andrew Mercer and Madeline Brooks were just two people who stumbled into something beautiful. It started in the most ordinary way possible. A bookstore. Not one of those massive chain stores with coffee bars and self-help sections that stretch for miles. This was Fletcher's Books, a tiny, cramped shop squeezed between a coin laundromat and a family-owned bakery on the east side of the city. The kind of place where the floor creaked, the shelves leaned slightly to the left, and the smell of old pages mixed with fresh bread from next door. Madeline worked there 6 days a week. She wasn't the owner, just an employee who loved books more than most people loved anything. She'd arrive early, arrange the displays with careful precision, and spend her lunch breaks reading in the corner chair by the window. Her hair was always tied in a loose bun, a pencil tucked behind her ear, her glasses sliding down her nose when she got lost in a story. She looked like sunlight disguised as a woman. And Andrew? He looked like a man who'd just found something he never knew he needed. He first walked in on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Madeline's monthly rent. He looked completely out of place among the faded spines and mismatched furniture, like a lion wandering into a library. "Can I help you find something?" Madeline asked, glancing up from her inventory list. Andrew hesitated. The truth was, he'd walked past this shop 100 times and never noticed it. But today, stressed from a board meeting and suffocated by expectations, he needed air, space, something real. I'm looking for, he scanned the shelves. Something that'll make me forget the world exists for a few hours. Madeline smiled. That's a tall order, but I think I can help. She led him to a small section in the back and pulled out a worn copy of a novel he'd never heard of. Their fingers brushed when she handed it to him. It was brief, accidental, but something sparked. Andrew bought the book. He came back the next day, and the next, and the next. He bought books he never read. He asked long, winding questions just to hear her voice. He lingered by the counter, pretending to browse, while really just watching the way her face lit up when she talked about stories. On the 5th visit, Madeline laughed and said, "Do you actually read any of these? Or do you just like spending money?" Andrew grinned, a real grin, not the practiced corporate smile he'd perfected for investors. "Maybe I just like the recommendations." Or maybe, she teased, adjusting her glasses, "you like the person making them." He didn't deny it. By the 3rd week, they were having coffee together after her shifts. By the 4th, he was walking her home. By the 2nd month, they were tangled together in her tiny apartment, breathless and laughing, wondering how two people from such different worlds could fit so perfectly. Their nights were magic. Madeline would cook simple meals in her cramped kitchen, pasta, roasted vegetables, nothing fancy. But Andrew ate like it was a 5-star restaurant. He'd wash the dishes while she dried, and they'd talk about everything. Childhood dreams, favorite books, the things that kept them awake at night. And then, the talking would stop. He'd pull her close, his hands warm on her waist, his lips finding hers with a hunger that felt like coming home. They'd stumble to her bedroom, their laughter turning into whispers, their whispers turning into something deeper. Something sacred. Her body was soft and warm beneath his. Her touch made him feel seen in ways money and power never could. When she looked at him, really looked at him, she didn't see Andrew Mercer, heir to a corporate empire. She saw Andrew. Just Andrew. The man who laughed too loud at bad jokes, who was terrified of disappointing his father, who dreamed of a life that didn't revolve around quarterly earnings. "What do you want, Andrew?" she whispered one night, her head resting on his chest. "If you could have anything, be anyone." He traced circles on her bare shoulder. "This. You. A life where I wake up next to someone who actually knows me." She kissed his jaw. "Then take it. It's not that simple." "Why not?" He went quiet. Because even then, even in those perfect stolen moments, Andrew knew the truth. His family would never accept her. He started keeping their relationship secret. At first, Madeline didn't mind. She understood that his world was complicated. Board meetings, family expectations, social obligations. She didn't need to be paraded around at galas or introduced to his parents. She just wanted him. But as months passed, the secrecy started to sting. "When are you going to tell them about me?" she asked one evening, pulling on his shirt after he'd dressed to leave for yet another family dinner. Andrew kissed her forehead. "Soon. You always say that. I mean it this time." But he didn't. Because every time he thought about introducing Madeline to his parents, to his mother's icy judgment and his father's calculating stare, he felt a knot tighten in his chest. One night, after too much wine, Madeline finally said it. "You're ashamed of me." Andrew's head snapped up. "What?" "No." "Madeline." "Then why does no one in your life know I exist?" "It's not about you. It's about them. My family, they wouldn't understand." "Understand what?" "That you fell in love with someone who doesn't have a trust fund." He flinched. "Andrew." Her voice softened. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "What do you think I am?" He stared at her, at this woman who'd given him everything, who'd opened her heart without hesitation, who'd made him feel alive for the first time in his life. "Extraordinary," he whispered. She smiled gently. "Then stop hiding me like I'm ordinary." He kissed her, deeply, desperately, like he could apologize with his body for what his words couldn't fix. "I'll tell them," he promised against her lips. I swear. And for a moment, tangled together in the sheets, with her heartbeat steady against his, he believed it. He believed they could survive anything. But fairy tales don't survive in families that measure love in dollar signs. 3 months later, Andrew sat across from his father in the study of the Mercer estate, a room lined with leather-bound books no one read and portraits of ancestors who'd built their fortune on ruthless decisions. "I want to propose to Madeline," Andrew said. His father didn't even look up from his scotch. "No, Dad. Her last name adds nothing to ours, Andrew. Charlotte Graves, on the other hand, brings an empire." Andrew's jaw tightened. "I don't love Charlotte." "Love." His father finally looked at him, eyes cold. "Love is what you feel when you've secured your legacy. Right now, you're thinking with something else entirely." His mother entered the room, perfectly coiffed, dripping with pearls. "Andrew, darling, your father is right. This bookstore girl, her name is Madeline, is a lovely distraction. But distractions don't build dynasties." Andrew stood, fists clenched. "She's not a distraction. She's not suitable." His mother's voice was final. "And you know it. Deep down, you've always known it." The words sank into him like poison. Because part of him, the part trained since birth to prioritize legacy over love, wondered if they were right. 2 weeks later, Andrew met Madeline at their favorite coffee shop. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw his face. "Andrew." He couldn't look at her. "We need to talk." And in that moment, Madeline's world began to crumble. Because the man who'd once called her extraordinary was about to call her impossible. Madeline sat across from Andrew in the corner booth they'd claimed as theirs months ago. The same booth where he'd first told her he was falling for her. The same booth where they'd planned imaginary futures over lukewarm coffee and shared pastries. Now it felt like a funeral. "You're scaring me," Madeline said quietly, her hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. Andrew's jaw worked. He still couldn't meet her eyes. It's not going to work." The words hung in the air like smoke. Madeline blinked. "What?" "My family, the company. There are expectations I can't ignore anymore." "Expectations." She repeated the word like it was foreign. "Andrew, what are you talking about?" He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes broke something fundamental inside her chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't cruelty. It was resignation. Surrender. "You're not right for my future, Madeline." She flinched like he'd slapped her. "Not right for your future," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does that even mean?" "It means," he exhaled roughly, running his hand through his hair. "It means my parents have made it clear that if I want to inherit the company, if I want to have any role in the family business, I need to make strategic choices." Strategic choices. Her voice was hollow now. "Is that what they're calling it? Charlotte Graves comes from a family that can merge with ours. Her father controls shipping routes across 3 continents. The alliance would." "Stop." Madeline held up her hand. "Just stop. Don't sit here and explain to me like this is a business transaction. You're not breaking up with a stock portfolio, Andrew. You're breaking up with me." His face crumpled. "Madeline." "How long have you known?" she asked. "How long have you been planning this?" He went silent. "How long, Andrew?" 2 weeks, he admitted. Something inside her shattered completely. 2 weeks. "You've known for 2 weeks that you were going to throw me away, and you still came to my apartment. You still made love to me. You still whispered promises you knew you wouldn't keep. I was trying to find another way." "There is no other way." Her voice rose now, drawing looks from other customers. She didn't care. "There's just you, choosing money over me. Choosing your parents' approval over what we built together. Choosing to be a coward. That's not fair." "Fair." She laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? I gave you everything, Andrew. I opened my life to you. I let you see parts of me no one else has ever seen. I trusted you when you said I was extraordinary, when you said you wanted a life with me. And now you're telling me I'm not strategic enough." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not in front of him. Andrew reached across the table, trying to take her hand. She pulled away like his touch was fire. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't you dare touch me. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did it anyway." She stood, grabbing her purse with trembling hands. "You know what the worst part is? I actually believed you were different. I believed that underneath all that corporate polish and family pressure, there was a man brave enough to choose love. But I was wrong. You're exactly who they raised you to be." "Madeline, please." "I hope she's worth it," Madeline said, her voice breaking now. "I hope Charlotte Graves and her shipping empire fill whatever hole you just carved into your chest. Because you're going to feel this, Andrew. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually you're going to wake up next to someone you don't love and realize what you threw away." She turned to leave. "I'm sorry," he called after her. She stopped at the door, her hand on the handle. Without turning around, she said, "Sorry doesn't fix this, and neither will you." Then she walked out into the cold afternoon air, leaving behind the man who'd just destroyed her. She made it 2 blocks before she collapsed against a brick wall and finally let herself cry. 2 weeks later, Madeline woke up feeling wrong. Not heartbroken wrong, though that was still there, a constant ache in her chest that made breathing difficult. This was different. Physical. She barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up. At first, she blamed it on grief, on not eating properly, on the fact that she'd spent the past 14 days moving through life like a ghost, showing up to work but not really being present, smiling when customers asked if she was okay but feeling nothing. But when it happened again the next morning, and the morning after that, a terrible suspicion crept into her mind. No. She bought 3 pregnancy tests from 3 different pharmacies, too terrified to buy them all in one place, as if spreading them out would somehow change the results. All 3 came back positive. Madeline sat on her bathroom floor, staring at the plastic sticks, and felt her entire world shift on its axis. She was pregnant, with Andrew's child. The man who'd just dumped her for a richer woman was going to be a father. For a long time, she just sat there, frozen. Then the tears came. Not sad tears this time, but something more complicated. Fear, anger, and underneath it all, a fierce, protective love for the tiny life growing inside her. She had to tell him. As much as she hated him right now, as much as his betrayal still felt like an open wound, he deserved to know. And maybe this would change things. Maybe when he found out, he'd realize what truly mattered. Her hands shook as she dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a woman's voice answered. "Mercer Residence." Madeline's stomach dropped. I need to speak with Andrew. "Mr. Mercer is unavailable. May I ask who's calling?" "It's Madeline Brooks. It's urgent. Please, I really need." "Ms. Brooks." The voice turned ice cold. She recognized it now. Andrew's mother. "My son has moved on with his life. I suggest you do the same." "Mrs. Mercer, please, I just need 5 minutes." "Whatever you think you need to say to my son, I assure you, this family has no interest in hearing it. Andrew is engaged to Charlotte Graves. The announcement will be in the papers tomorrow. Your association with him is over." "I'm pregnant," Madeline blurted out. Silence. "Then I'm sure you are." Madeline's blood ran cold. "What? Young women like you see men like my son as lottery tickets. A convenient pregnancy, a plea for support, perhaps even a lawsuit. It's textbook, really. Almost boring in its predictability. That's not, I would never." "This family has no interest in your little problem," Mrs. Mercer continued, her voice sharp as a blade. "And if you attempt to contact Andrew again, if you so much as breathe his name in public, our lawyers will ensure you regret it. Do I make myself clear? He deserves to know he's going to be a father. He deserves a future that isn't derailed by mistakes from his past. Goodbye, Ms. Brooks." The line went dead. Madeline stood there, phone pressed to her ear, listening to the dial tone like it might somehow change what just happened. She'd been called a mistake. Her baby had been called a problem. And Andrew was engaged to someone else. She tried calling back. 5 times. 10 times. Each time, the calls went straight to voicemail, and she knew that Mrs. Mercer had blocked her number. She thought about showing up at his office, at his house, at forcing him to face her. But what would that accomplish? He'd already chosen. He'd already made it clear where she ranked in his priorities. And now his mother had made it even clearer. Madeline Brooks and her unborn child were nothing but obstacles to be eliminated. So she made a choice of her own. She would raise this baby alone. She wouldn't beg, wouldn't plead, wouldn't give the Mercer family the satisfaction of seeing her desperate. If Andrew wanted to live his strategic life with his strategic wife, fine. But he'd never know what he'd lost. 3 months later, Madeline went to her first ultrasound alone. The technician moved the wand over her growing belly, and Madeline watched the screen through tears she couldn't control. "Well," the technician said with a smile, "I hope you're ready for an adventure." "What do you mean?" The technician turned the screen toward her. "Congratulations. You're having twins." Madeline stared at the 2 tiny heartbeats flickering on the monitor, 2 perfect, impossible miracles, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not Andrew's twins. Hers. Her daughters. And she would give them everything he never could. Unconditional love, unwavering presence, and a mother who would never, ever choose anything over them, even if it meant doing it all alone. If you've watched this far, then you're invested in Madeline's story. So show this video some love and hit that like button. And subscribe to Mr. Williams Chronicles, so you do not miss more of our stories just like this one. Do no leave yet, because what comes next will break your heart before it puts it back together. 5 years changes everything. 5 years can turn a naive young woman into a warrior. 5 years can transform hope into survival. 5 years can teach you that love isn't about what you feel. It's about what you do when everything falls apart. Madeline learned all of that the hard way. She raised Abby and June alone in a 1-bedroom apartment on the north side of the city. The place was small, barely 600 square feet, with thin walls that let in every sound from the neighbors and a radiator that clanked like it was angry. But it was theirs. She worked double shifts at Fletcher's Books during the day and took freelance editing jobs at night after the girls went to sleep. She survived on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee, her body running on adrenaline and sheer maternal will. Money was always tight. There were nights when Madeline ate crackers for dinner so the girls could have real meals. Birthdays celebrated with homemade cakes instead of bakery ones. Clothes from thrift stores that she'd wash and mend until they fell apart. But the girls never knew they were poor, because Madeline made sure their childhood was full of love, laughter, and bedtime stories that transported them to worlds where anything was possible. She never spoke badly of Andrew. The girls would ask sometimes innocent questions that stabbed her heart every single time. "Where's our daddy? Why doesn't he live with us? Did we do something wrong?" Madeline would pull them close, kiss their foreheads, and say gently, "Your daddy lives far away, but that has nothing to do with you. You are loved. You are wanted. You are everything." She became an expert at redirecting conversations, at filling the father-shaped hole with twice as much mother. She went to every school event, every parent-teacher conference, every birthday party. She was mom and dad, provider and protector, the one constant in their small, safe world. And most days it was enough. But there were nights, quiet nights after the girls fell asleep, when Madeline would sit on the bathroom floor and cry so hard her chest hurt. Nights when the loneliness felt like drowning. Nights when she wondered if she'd made the right choice not fighting harder for Andrew's involvement. Then she'd look at her daughters sleeping peacefully in their shared bed, curled around each other like puzzle pieces, and she'd remember. She hadn't made a choice at all. Andrew had. She was just dealing with the consequences. Everything changed on a Tuesday in April. Abby collapsed during recess. One moment she was running across the playground, laughing with June. The next, she was on the ground, her lips turning blue, her small body convulsing. The school called an ambulance. Madeline got the call at work and felt her entire world stop. By the time she reached the hospital, Abby was stable, hooked up to monitors, pale but breathing. June sat in the waiting room, her face streaked with tears, clutching a stuffed rabbit like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to earth. "Mommy," June whispered when Madeline scooped her up. "Is Abby going to die?" "No, baby. No. She's going to be okay." But Madeline didn't know if she was lying. The cardiologist's office smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. Dr. Patel was a kind woman in her 50s with gentle eyes and a straightforward manner. She pulled up Abby's scans on the computer screen, images of a small heart with chambers that didn't quite work the way they should. "Your daughter has a congenital heart defect," Dr. Patel explained. "It's rare but treatable. She'll need surgery to repair the valve and ensure proper blood flow." Madeline's hands trembled in her lap. "How soon?" "Ideally, within the next 2 months. The longer we wait, the more strain on her heart." "Okay." Madeline nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. "Okay. What do I need to do?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "The surgery is complex. It requires a specialist team and at least a week of post-op hospital care. With your insurance, you're looking at out-of-pocket costs around $75,000. The number hit Madeline like a freight train. $75,000. She made $32,000 a year. I don't have that," Madeline whispered. "There are payment plans, medical loans, some charitable foundations that help with pediatric cardiac cases." "How long do those take?" Dr. Patel's silence said everything. Madeline felt the walls closing in. "What happens if I can't afford it in time?" The doctor's expression softened with sympathy Madeline didn't want. "Then we manage her condition as best we can with medication. But without the surgery, her quality of life will be significantly impacted. And there are risks." "What kind of risks?" "Heart failure, stroke. In severe cases, it could be fatal." Madeline couldn't breathe. Her baby, her brave, bright, beautiful Abby, who loved dinosaurs and drew elaborate pictures of dragons, might die because Madeline couldn't afford to save her. She tried everything. She applied for grants, all denied or waitlisted for months. She took out loans. Not enough. Her credit wasn't good enough for the amounts she needed. She started a crowdfunding campaign. It raised $3,000, nowhere near enough. She picked up a third job cleaning offices at night. Her body screamed exhaustion, but she kept going. Nothing was enough. 6 weeks passed. Abby's condition worsened. The medications were losing effectiveness. Dr. Patel called with increasing urgency. "We're running out of time, Ms. Brooks." Madeline knew. She spent her nights staring at the ceiling, doing impossible math, wondering if she should sell everything she owned, wondering if it would even matter. And then, scrolling through the news on her phone during a rare break, she saw it. Andrew Mercer to marry Charlotte Graves in Society Wedding of the Year. Combined family net worth exceeds $800 million. There was a photo. Andrew in a tailored suit, standing next to a blonde woman dripping in diamonds, both of them smiling for the camera like they'd won the lottery. Madeline stared at that picture for a long time. Andrew was worth millions now. Her daughter needed $75,000 to live. He didn't even know Abby and June existed. But he was about to. Madeline wasn't stupid. She knew what people would think, that she was a scorned ex-girlfriend out for revenge, that she was trying to ruin his wedding for petty reasons, that she was a gold digger finally coming to collect. Let them think it. She didn't care about Andrew's reputation, his wedding, or his feelings. She cared about her daughter's heartbeat. She hired a lawyer with the last of her savings, a woman named Patricia Chun, who specialized in family law, and didn't judge when Madeline explained the situation. "You have rights," Patricia said firmly. "He's the biological father. He has a legal obligation to support his children, whether he knows about them or not." "I'm not trying to destroy his life," Madeline said quietly. "I just need help saving my daughters." Patricia nodded. "Then let's make sure he understands that." The wedding was in 2 weeks. Madeline bought a midnight blue dress from a consignment shop. She practiced what she'd say in the mirror until her voice stopped shaking. She explained to Abby and June, in the gentlest way possible, that they were going to meet their father. "Will he like us?" June asked, her eyes wide with hope and fear. Madeline kissed her forehead. "He's going to love you. Both of you. She didn't know if that was true, but it was what her daughters needed to hear. The night before the wedding, Madeline stood in her tiny bathroom, staring at her reflection. She looked older than 28, tired, worn down by years of carrying weight meant for two people. But she also looked determined, fierce, unbreakable. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the woman in the mirror. "I'm sorry I have to do this, but I won't let her die. I won't." The next day, she put on her blue dress, held her daughter's hands, and walked into the cathedral where Andrew Mercer was about to marry someone else. Not for revenge, not for spite, but because a mother's love is the most powerful force on earth. And nothing, not pride, not shame, not fear, would stop her from saving her child. The cathedral courtyard was nearly empty now. Most of the guests had scattered like startled birds, some rushing to spread gossip, others fleeing to avoid being associated with the scandal. A few lingered in small clusters, whispering furiously, their phones out, already posting about what they'd witnessed. Madeline sat on a stone bench with Abby resting against her side, exhausted from the day's chaos. June played quietly nearby, picking dandelions from the grass and arranging them in careful rows. Andrew found them there an hour after Charlotte walked away. He looked destroyed, tie loosened, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. He approached slowly, like a man approaching a ledge, terrified of what he'd find when he looked over. "Can we talk?" His voice was hoarse. Madeline glanced at her daughters. "Girls, go play by that fountain for a few minutes. Stay where I can see you." They obeyed without argument, sensing the weight of the moment. Andrew sat on the bench, leaving space between them, space that felt like an ocean. "I didn't know," he said again. "Madeline, I swear to God, I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't know about them." "I called you," Madeline said quietly. "The day I found out." "Your mother answered." Andrew's face drained of what little color remained. "What?" "She told me to stay away. Said this family had no interest in my little problem. She said if I contacted you again, your lawyers would make me regret it." Andrew stood abruptly, his hands shaking. "She what?" "She blocked my number. I tried 10 times that day. Every call went to voicemail, so I stopped trying." "Why didn't you?" He caught himself. "I'm sorry. That's a stupid question. Of course you stopped trying. Jesus Christ." He pressed his palms against his eyes. "My mother knew. All these years, she knew I had children, and she never." His voice broke. Madeline watched him without sympathy. She'd spent 5 years surviving. She didn't have energy left to comfort him through the consequences of his choices. "Why now?" Andrew asked, turning to face her. "Why today? Why my wedding?" Madeline's jaw tightened. "You think I wanted to do this? You think I enjoyed walking into that cathedral and humiliating myself in front of 300 people? Then why?" "Because Abby is dying, Andrew." The words landed like a bomb. Andrew staggered back. "What?" "She has a congenital heart defect. She needs surgery. $75,000 I don't have. I tried everything, grants, loans, fundraising. Nothing worked. I was out of options." Her voice cracked. "So yes, I crashed your wedding. Because my daughter's life is worth more than your reputation." Andrew dropped to his knees in front of her, his face twisted in anguish. "Oh my God. Madeline, I'm so sorry. He couldn't finish. "What do you need?" "The surgery, the hospital, everything. I'll take care of it. Today. Right now." "I don't want your charity," Madeline said coldly. "It's not charity. They're my daughters. Let me help them. Please." Madeline studied him. This man who'd broken her so completely, now broken himself. Part of her wanted to refuse, to make him suffer the way she'd suffered. But Abby's pale face flashed through her mind, and she pushed her pride aside. "Fine. But this doesn't fix what you did. Money doesn't erase 5 years." "I know." His voice was barely a whisper. "But it's a start. And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the rest." The Mercer mansion felt like a mausoleum. Andrew walked through the front door at sunset, still wearing his wedding tuxedo, smelling like cathedral incense and regret. His father was in the study, nursing a scotch. His mother sat rigid in her chair, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Well," his father said darkly, "that was quite a performance." Andrew ignored him. He walked straight to his mother. "You knew." She sipped her wine. "I don't know what you're talking about. Madeline called 5 years ago. She was pregnant. You answered my phone and told her to disappear." His mother didn't flinch. "I did what was necessary to protect your future. You hid my children from me." Andrew's voice shook the room. "You let me live a lie for 5 years while Madeline raised my daughters alone. Those girls would have ruined everything we built. They're my daughters." He slammed his hand on the desk. "My blood, my responsibility. And you took that choice away from me." His father stood. "Andrew, you're emotional right now. Once you calm down." "I'm not calming down." Andrew pulled a stack of documents from his jacket pocket and dropped them on the desk. "I had Patricia Chun pull records, board authorization forms, merger contracts, stock transfers, all with my signature. Except they're not my signature, are they?" The room went silent. His mother's hand trembled slightly around her wine glass. "You forged my name," Andrew continued, his voice ice-cold now. "On the Graves merger documents. On the loan guarantees. You committed fraud to force that marriage through." His father's face reddened. "We did what was necessary. You committed crimes." Andrew shouted, "Do you understand what you've done? If the board finds out, if Charlotte's family finds out, they can sue us into oblivion. I could face criminal charges for documents I never signed." His mother stood, her composure cracking. "We did it for you. To secure your legacy. To give you the life you deserved. The life you wanted, you mean." Andrew's voice dropped to something dangerous. "You built your empire on my back without asking me. You erased my children without telling me. You forged my signature and called it love." "Andrew, I'm turning these documents over to the board tomorrow morning. I'm telling them everything. And you," he looked at his mother with something between pity and disgust, "you're done." His mother went pale. "You wouldn't." "Watch me." His father stepped forward. "Son, if you do this, the scandal will destroy everything. The company, our reputation, your future." "My future is with those 2 little girls you pretended didn't exist," Andrew said. "Everything else can burn." The emergency board meeting happened at 8 a.m. the next morning. Andrew walked into the conference room with Patricia Chun and the forged documents. 15 board members sat around the polished table, their faces ranging from curious to hostile. Andrew didn't sit. "My mother, Elizabeth Mercer, has been forging my signature on corporate documents for the past 6 months," he began, "including the merger agreement with Graves International. I have originals, expert analysis, and testimony. I'm here to cooperate fully with whatever investigation you deem necessary." Chaos erupted. Shouts, accusations, legal advisors huddling in corners. Someone called the SEC. Someone else called Graves International. Andrew stood in the center of it all, calm and resolute. By noon, his mother was escorted from the building by security, stripped of her executive position and board seat. She didn't look at Andrew as she left. By 2 p.m., the Graves family had issued a statement terminating the merger and threatening legal action. By 5 p.m., the story was national news. Andrew survived only because he'd voluntarily exposed the fraud. The board kept him on barely, under strict probation and oversight. His mother didn't speak to him again. His father called him a fool. But when Madeline texted him that evening, "Abby's surgery is scheduled for next week. Thank you." Andrew felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Relief. Charlotte came to Madeline's apartment 3 days later. She knocked softly, wearing jeans and a Columbia sweatshirt, her hair in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no designer labels. Just a woman who'd had her world upended. Madeline opened the door, surprised. "Charlotte." "I'm not here to fight," Charlotte said quickly, holding up her hands. Can we talk? Please." Madeline hesitated, then stepped aside. They sat in the small living room. June peeked around the corner, curious, but Madeline sent her back to play with Abby. "I'm sorry," Charlotte said quietly, "for everything, for judging you, for believing the worst, for not seeing that Andrew never really loved me the way he loved you." Madeline didn't know what to say. Charlotte continued, her voice trembling. "My family cut me off. They blame me for the failed merger. I've been living in a hotel for 3 days because I can't go home." "I'm sorry," Madeline said and meant it. "I didn't want this for you. I know." Charlotte wiped her eyes. "That's why I'm here. I want to help. I know a lawyer, the best in the state for family law and corporate litigation. He can help Andrew sort out the legal mess his mother created." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "His contact information. Consider it an apology." Madeline took the envelope, studying Charlotte carefully. "Why are you doing this?" Charlotte smiled sadly. "Because Andrew deserves to fight for his daughters. And you deserve someone who actually chooses you. I'm not that person for him. But maybe this is me choosing to do the right thing for once." She stood to leave. "Charlotte," Madeline called. "Thank you." Charlotte nodded. "Tell the girls they're almost stepmom says hello." And then she was gone, not redeemed entirely, but human, complicated, real. If you're still with us, then you know healing isn't simple. So show this video some love and hit that like button. Subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles, because what happens next will determine if broken hearts can ever truly be made whole again. Andrew showed up at Madeline's apartment the next evening with grocery bags. Not flowers, not jewelry, not grand romantic gestures, just groceries. "I thought maybe I could make dinner," he offered awkwardly, standing in the doorway like a stranger. "For you and the girls, if that's okay." Madeline stared at him for a long moment. Part of her wanted to slam the door in his face. The other part, the exhausted, overwhelmed part that had been doing everything alone for 5 years, was too tired to fight. "Fine," she said, stepping aside. "But the girls eat at 6:30. Don't be late." He wasn't. Andrew cooked spaghetti, simple, nothing fancy, while Abby and June watched him from the kitchen doorway with wide, cautious eyes. They'd met their father exactly once, in the most chaotic circumstances possible. Now here he was, in their small kitchen, trying to figure out where the colander was. "Do you know how to cook?" June asked skeptically. Andrew smiled. "I'm learning." Dinner was awkward at first. The girls picked at their food, stealing glances at Andrew like he might disappear. Madeline sat rigid in her chair, hyper-aware of every movement, every word. But then Abby asked, "Can you pass the Parmesan?" And Andrew did, and something shifted. Just slightly. They were sitting at a table together, eating a meal, like a family. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was a start. Andrew came back the next night, and the night after that. He didn't push, didn't demand forgiveness, or try to force intimacy. He just showed up. He helped with dishes. He read bedtime stories in a voice that cracked with emotion when Abby fell asleep on his lap. He sat on the floor and played with June's toy dinosaurs, learning their names, making them roar. Madeline watched from the doorway, her arms crossed, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. One evening, after the girls were asleep, Andrew found her on the tiny balcony, staring at the city lights. "You don't have to keep coming," Madeline said without looking at him. "I know. So why do you?" Andrew leaned against the railing beside her. "Because I missed 5 years, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But maybe if I'm here now every day doing the work, maybe you can." Madeline finally looked at him. "You think it's that simple? You think showing up for a few weeks erases what you did?" "No," he said quietly. "I think it'll take years, maybe a lifetime. But I'm not asking for forgiveness yet, Madeline. I'm just asking to be here, to be their father, to prove I'm not the coward I was 5 years ago." Her breath caught. "And what about me?" Andrew's eyes softened. "What about you? Do I get the part of you I used to have, or just the part you think you owe us?" He stepped closer, his voice raw with honesty. "I never stopped loving you, Madeline. I just stopped being brave enough to fight for it. And that's on me. But if you let me, I want to fight now. Not because I owe you. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Madeline's eyes glistened. She looked away, blinking hard. You don't get to just say that and expect. I'm not expecting anything, Andrew interrupted gently. I'm just telling you the truth. Finally, Abby's surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Andrew took the day off, something he'd never done in his entire career. He sat with Madeline in the surgical waiting room, both of them silent, both of them terrified. June was with a neighbor. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and anxiety. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. What if something goes wrong? Madeline whispered. Andrew took her hand without thinking. She didn't pull away. It won't, he said, even though he had no way of knowing that. She's strong, like her mother. Madeline squeezed his hand just once, then let go. They waited. For hours felt like 4 years. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in her scrubs, both Andrew and Madeline shot to their feet. The surgery went perfectly, Dr. Patel said with a tired smile. Abby's heart is functioning exactly as it should. She'll need monitoring and follow-up, but she's going to be fine. Madeline collapsed into Andrew's arms, sobbing with relief. He held her tight, his own tears falling into her hair, and for the first time in 5 years, they grieved together, celebrated together, breathed together. When they finally pulled apart, Madeline looked up at him with red, swollen eyes and said, "Thank you for being here, for paying for this, for everything." Andrew cupped her face gently. "I should have been here 5 years ago, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." Recovery was slow. Abby spent a week in the hospital. Andrew and Madeline took shifts staying with her. Madeline during the days, Andrew at night. June visited every afternoon, bringing drawings she'd made and stories about what the neighbor's cat had done. Gradually, Abby got stronger. Color returned to her cheeks. Her laughter came back. She started bossing the nurses around, asking for extra pudding, demanding Andrew read her favorite book 3 times in a row. "She's definitely your daughter," a nurse joked to Andrew. "Stubborn as hell." Andrew grinned. "Best compliment I've ever received." When Abby was finally discharged, Andrew carried her to the car while Madeline held June's hand. They drove home together, all 4 of them, and for the first time it felt less like an obligation and more like a choice. Weeks turned into months. Andrew didn't move in. Madeline wasn't ready for that. But he was there almost every day, helping with homework, cooking meals, learning how to braid hair badly, attending parent-teacher conferences. He paid off Madeline's medical debts without fanfare. He set up college funds for both girls. He cut ties with toxic business partners his parents had forced on him. He took a voluntary demotion at work to have more flexible hours. He stopped living for a legacy and started living for a family. And slowly, painfully, carefully, Madeline began to trust him again. Not all at once, not dramatically, just in small moments. The way he remembered June, liked her sandwiches cut diagonally. The way he called every night to say goodnight to the girls, even when he was traveling. The way he looked at Madeline like she was still the most extraordinary woman he'd ever met. One night, 3 months after Abby's surgery, Madeline found Andrew asleep on the couch with both girls sprawled across him. June had her head on his chest. Abby had her arm around his neck. They looked peaceful, complete. Madeline stood there for a long time, just watching. Then she gently woke Andrew. "Come on, let's get them to bed." They carried the girls together, tucked them in together, whispered good night together. And when they walked back to the living room, Andrew turned to leave like he always did. But Madeline caught his hand. "Stay," she whispered. Andrew froze. "Madeline, I'm not saying everything is fixed. I'm not saying I've forgiven everything. But," she took a shaky breath, "I'm saying I want to try, really try. If you're willing to keep proving you're different." Andrew pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I'll prove it every single day for the rest of my life. I swear." She kissed him then, softly at first, testing, remembering. Then deeper, letting herself feel again, letting herself hope again. It wasn't the kiss of 2 people falling in love for the first time. It was the kiss of two people choosing to rebuild something that had been shattered, choosing to trust again, choosing each other despite the scars. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Andrew showed up with a different kind of grocery bag. "What's this?" Madeline asked, eyeing him suspiciously. "Ingredients for pancakes." The girls said they wanted dinosaur-shaped ones. Madeline laughed, a real full laugh that filled the apartment. "You don't know how to make dinosaur pancakes? Then I guess you'll have to teach me." They cooked together, flour ending up everywhere, the girls giggling as Andrew's dinosaurs looked more like blobs. The apartment smelled like butter and maple syrup and something Madeline hadn't felt in years: contentment. After breakfast, while the girls played in their room, Andrew pulled Madeline onto the balcony. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice nervous. Madeline's heart stuttered. "Andrew." "Not that," he said quickly, reading her mind. "Not yet. I know we're not there yet. But—" He took her hands. "I want to move closer. Not in here. I know that's too much. But maybe a few blocks away? So I can be here more. So the girls don't have to wait for me to drive across the city. So I can be the father and the partner I should have been from the beginning." Tears pricked Madeline's eyes. "You really mean it? I've never meant anything more in my life." She nodded, unable to speak. Andrew kissed her forehead. "Thank you for giving me this chance, for letting me be part of this family, for being strong enough to survive without me and brave enough to let me back in." Madeline looked up at him, her voice thick with emotion. "Don't make me regret it." "I won't," he promised. "Never again." 1 year later, on the anniversary of Abby's surgery, the four of them sat on a hospital rooftop, the same rooftop where Andrew and Madeline had first talked about rebuilding. Abby was healthy, thriving, running circles around everyone. June had started asking if Andrew was going to marry her mom, because that's what dads do. Andrew and Madeline sat close, watching the city lights reflect in the sky. "I love you," Andrew said quietly. "I never stopped. But now I know what it actually means. It means showing up. It means sacrifice. It means choosing you every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Madeline leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you too. The new you. The one who learned what matters." He kissed the top of her head. "So, June keeps asking when I'm going to propose." Madeline smiled against his shirt. "And what did you tell her?" "That I'm waiting for the right moment. When her mom is ready. When it feels like the beginning of something new, not the repair of something broken." Madeline lifted her head, looking into his eyes. "And what if I said, I might be ready soon?" Andrew's breath caught. "Then I'd say I've been carrying a ring in my pocket for 3 months, waiting for you to say exactly that." She laughed through tears. "You're serious?" "Completely." He pulled out a simple gold band. No giant diamond, nothing ostentatious. Just elegant and real. "But I'm not asking tonight. Because when I ask, I want it to be perfect. I want it to be ours. Not rushed. Not forced. Just right." Madeline kissed him, long, deep, full of promise. "Then I'll be waiting," she whispered against his lips. Behind them, the girls giggled, peeking around the rooftop door. And for the first time in 6 years, Madeline looked at Andrew Mercer and saw not the man who broke her heart, but the man who spent every day since putting it back together. A family didn't just begin that night. It finally, truly healed. If this story reminded you that transformation is possible, that broken things can be made whole, and that real love is proven through action, leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Like this video if you believe in second chances earned through sacrifice. And subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles, because every story we tell here is a reminder that you're stronger than your past, braver than your pain, and worthy of a love that chooses you every single day. May you have the courage to walk away from what diminishes you, the strength to demand what you deserve, and the wisdom to recognize when someone has truly changed, not through words, but through the life they build with their choices.